Okay, we are now live on YouTube. FYI.
Let's go ahead and call to order the special meeting, executive committee meeting of the City Association of Santa Clara County at March 27th, 2025 at 5:03 p.m. First up is roll call. Shall can you please conduct roll call?
Certainly. Larry Klein.
Present.
Tina Walia.
Present.
J.R. Fruin.
Present.
Elliot Scazola.
Here.
Lisa Fliger.
Here.
Okay, with 5 in attendance, we have quorum.
Thank you. Next up is oral communications. Oral communications is a chance for the public to speak on an item not on today's agenda. Speakers will have 3 minutes. Are there any remote or in-person speakers?
No one remote.
Okay. And no one in the room. We'll move on to our next item, president update. No real update. Thanks to everyone for, moving your calendar slightly for today's meeting. And hopefully this will be the last time the blinds move. But thank you for being here as always. And I know it's a rainy day, so it's been might have been easier since we moved a little bit. But we'll talk more about the upcoming meeting. And I think in general, things seem to be going relatively smooth this year. Definitely as we're looking for speakers and other topics, please reach out to me as you're looking through our priorities for the year.
Mayor Klein, we have the consent agenda.
I did skip over the consent agenda. Thank you. I highlighted what I needed to speak to. Thank you. Next is our consent agenda. This is to approve the minutes from our committee meeting, the executive committee meeting of February 27th, 2025. Are there any changes or comments? Is there any member of the public remote? No one in the room to speak on this? Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Made by Walia, seconded by Fligor.
Okay.
Can you please conduct the vote?
Sure. Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by Walia, seconded by Fliger. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Motion passes.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to item 3, Santa Clara County City Managers Association Symposium on Excellence in Municipal Government.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thanks for giving us a little bit of time. I was going to be joined by Kimbra, but she had some conflicts. So unfortunately, she won't be here. So I will take it from here in any second now. I don't know what I did with, okay. So what I passed out was some information. We've started planning, and the idea was sort of parallel to what President Klein had to get my title straight.
Larry's good enough.
We also have the Sunnyvale Financing Authority, where he's Chair Klein, right? Anyway, so we're working on a symposium for city managers and council members to help improve relationships and better governance, etc. What I passed out was the work that a small working group, a subset of the City Managers Association, has started on. It is myself, Kimbra McCarthy from Mountain View, Peter Pernajad from Los Altos, Frank Benest, retired from Los Altos Hills. My apologies. We started putting this together. What we're looking for today are from the committee are first, would you like this to be a co-sponsored event? So between the Cities Association and the Santa Clara County City Managers Association. Do you have any feedback on the topics that we passed out? And does the draft timeline work? And so this will be a little bit more in depth than what we might do at our summer session with Kevin Dugan with the larger group. This would be designed to be a little bit more targeted and in depth going forward. So that's all I have to share right now, and I'd be love to hear your feedback.
Thank you, Tim. I'll pass it to my board members. Any comments or feedback immediately?
I'm just looking at it.
Okay.
I mean,
You can give us feedback later also. This is, so sorry, it came out kind of last minute here.
no worries, but what I'm seeing here is fantastic. I mean, especially for people who are new. I mean, I know when I came into it, I learned the hard way. I'm like, oh wow, oh okay. Like there was a lot. Oh okay. Oh, I didn't know that was part of the. Okay, cool, cool. So I think this is especially fantastic for new electeds. Yeah, when I'm looking at the topics here, when we're talking about actually the effect of policy, like how do you become an actual truly great representative for your community? I think that's fantastic. So, I mean, for me, that out of everything I see here, which is all good, but that's kind of number one for me. That's my feedback at the moment.
Board member Flygor? No.
No, I think this is a great idea. I love the partnership concept. And the topics touch on the things that I agree we should cover. So a couple of questions. It's still not clear to me how this would complement the summer event and not conflict with it. Because we wouldn't want our members feeling that we're basically regurgitating the same thing at our summer event, that they're attending these sessions hearing. So it's still ensuring that the president's vision for the summer event isn't in conflict with this or vice versa. Because I know what you were aiming for, but I do think there's a potential for conflict. So it's just figuring out the differences and making sure they complement each other. And then I'm going to throw a question to the attorneys. Not that I think we would have an issue approving this, but for partnerships, I thought in the bylaws, Andrew, or maybe Shali, that is this the one that would require 2/3 votes? Does something like this require, is it budget related or?
I think it's budget related, and I'm not aware that this would cost much.
That's what I was going to ask. So what's the funding source for this?
For this actual,
The symposium?
for the
Because there's dinner.
yeah, for the symposium or for this symposium or for the
For
Student
yours.
Association, for ours.
For yours.
I don't have an answer to that. I'll have to get
'Cause
back to
that
you.
would-
It's either the City Managers Association
Oh,
or
okay.
it would be fees. But I need to circle back with that. I don't think we had that conversation actually.
Okay, because I don't know how much it will cost. And then just one last question, because you mentioned that the scale may be smaller than what we were envisioning. So who would be the audience for the symposium?
So it would be, the hope is anybody who, this is a big point of discussion for us, right? Like the folks who really need this may not be the ones who want to show up, and the ones who show up may not
Oh,
need this.
Yeah.
So we are targeting newer council members.
Okay.
We're looking for at least a couple and the city manager from each city. But I think it's looking for people who either could use, the additional, background and training learned from, the experience of the city manager or the council members that will be on the panel presenting. But also we're looking for folks who maybe they just haven't, they haven't had they've only been a council member maybe since this year. It's a good opportunity for them to, get a little bit more under their feet. So
We just had a council member, he just got elected last year, ask whether or not we could do a study session on CalPERS, because it's also new to him.
yeah,
And I know you don't have those types of topics on your list, but 100% at a minimum, that should be your target audience, because a lot of
the
us are
newer
so new
ones.
to them.
Mhm.
But he asked, can we do a CalPERS? And CEQA, it was CEQA and CalPERS. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
if I may, Nisa, just to respond to your question in terms of what would require 2/3 approval, it's an expenditure of $10,000 or more.
Okay, it's
Thank
not
you,
going to
Andrew.
be $10,000.
That's cost.
Good to hear. Thank you.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Member Walia?
Thank you. So Tim, I like the way you have put this together. Took me a moment to just quickly skim it. And just one thought, when you market it, yes, the newer council members would benefit more. But I also agree with what you said earlier. Often for symposiums, people who can benefit often don't show up. And what I'm saying is, it doesn't necessarily mean that the newer ones only need this.
I
There
agree.
are others who could benefit with it, who have been, let's just say, moving along for a few years. And it is difficult to point out that you could benefit from this. So when you market it, don't narrow it when you present it.
We would market, I think, to everybody, but we can do some, I envisioned, and I admit I haven't talked to the rest of the city managers about this, but I kind of envisioned some using city managers to go to specific potential candidates and encourage that. If that relationship isn't there, maybe having other, city managers from other organizations and or other, members of the city association help encourage that, I think probably one of the fears that I think I hear is some elected officials may feel like they don't want to get tainted by the, status quo approach to doing things. So trying to reach out to those would be helpful too, I think, because that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is really role clarity.
Thank you. And when you're looking, when I'm looking at the potential topics that you have added, one thing that I feel could be included, and maybe you already have it in mind. A lot of council members come here and some of them take more than 4 years to figure out what they campaign on in terms of policy changes is completely unrealistic. There is no budget. And and good listening and really understanding how all those pieces come together, it gets complicated for colleagues to express that. And from a neutral group like this, if somebody is there, I think that's a great opportunity to help them understand policy is really, forget what you campaign on. Policy is working with the team with the budget. And not just, I'm sure you already have that in mind, but I have observed in different places that's a big deal.
Great.
And if I have other thoughts, I'll be happy to reach out.
And we'll have another opportunity because we would come to the entire cities association with a more final product to discuss.
I have a few comments. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead.
sort of picking up on that notion in general is just sort of a theme I'd really like to see running through it, even if you don't want to hit it directly on the head, which is just the council manager form of government, because this is what we all operate under. And I think that the average council member doesn't really understand, at least when coming into office, where their authority ends. Because we're supposed to act in the realm of policy making. And I think that a lot of people who are newly elected to office in particular, they've been out campaigning, they've talked to lots of residents, and they make perhaps promises that they can't keep because they're about implementation, or there's some very specific thing to which due process rights attached that they can't really interfere with. So some sort of strong recognition of that form of government and what the role is, I think, is valuable.
Yeah, and I just as a brief comment, I think that's sort of the first bullet about being an effective council member. We didn't want to say that.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Outright,
put it in their face.
There's lots of things, but also I think what's important is it's our job as city managers and administrators to carry out the city council's direction, right? We don't. So to Tina's point, working together is how councils get their policy initiatives moving forward. So, yeah.
But to Jer and Tina's point, just to follow up, I've heard it also described as, in different trainings as how you move from campaigner to council member, because it's really two different roles.
Yeah.
So one thing that I just remember based on what your comment here was, Tim, So we have directly elected mayors for 2 years. We have directly elected mayors for 4 years. And we have many cities where the mayor changes every year.
Mhm.
One of my observations is that, how do I put this? Perhaps politics or perhaps the squeaky wheels on council members. Essentially, a city manager may handle the situation with one mayor versus another mayor 12 months later very differently.
Mm.
Some city managers will go with, oh, this is what the mayor says. No, the norms very clearly say the mayor is just the spokesperson. I'm not talking cities like Sunnyvale, but I'm talking cities like Cupertino and mine. And so it behooves the city manager as well to say very clearly, there is a boundary here. The agenda is owned by the mayor, but the rest of it, just because the mayor wants something, doesn't mean the other council members' work is ignored, as long as it gets the majority vote within the norms. So I think there is a nuance which both sides have to understand and be willing to work with. And unfortunately, the burden lies with the city manager in that scenario. So if that could come through, I do believe it would help a lot of cities. It be more effective. Thanks.
That's
Thank
a
you.
great comment.
I'll have several comments. First, yeah, I second the whole city manager council discussion.
Mhm.
Also, just the general partnership between council members and the city manager, which is important. Some of the things that I bring up on my onboarding that I think conceivably should be added, that council is the eyes and ears of the city. They're going to hear the complaints, the residents, and how that filters through to staff and to the city manager, how that feedback loop is there. Because, so it's staff will always notice certain things that it relies on residents that normally complain to our council members that then pass that on to city manager. So that's important. The first thing I would almost say, which is one of the things I always talk about, is the city as a business. So it relates to everything else, but at the end of the day, a lot of council members don't see that until they go through maybe their first or second even budget workshop and really understand that. So coming in with but laying that down is really important, I think, in my mind, that it is a business. It's, income versus outflow and keeping staff happy, all those sorts of things. I like the idea, and definitely this is one of the topics that, me coming in as president was really important to push. I love that the city managers want to partner on this, and
Yeah.
I do question about the overlap. That being said, and the other thing, the 2 dates that you chose are the nights of our October and November Cities Association meetings. So
Okay.
second Thursday for each of those months is the same time as this.
But they will have
pizza.
That's how we're paying for it.
But yeah, exactly.
I'm just
And
kidding.
are you going to attend? Which meeting are you going to attend? It's the other thing. But anyway, so just to look at
I got it.
and also conceivably 15 members would be pulled. And not that, but we
Yeah.
do have a few
You don't
members
want
there
that conflict.
that are first year
Mhm.
council members on Cities Association. So, something to think about when we're looking at potential dates. And I think that was all my comments. And
I realized I did have a question here about the promoting civic discourse. I'm a huge advocate. I miss that civics classes aren't really in existence so much anymore at the high school level. Like they used to, you have one semester of government, that's it. So I'm super curious, what was the conversation like about promoting civic discourse? Like, how would it be promoted? What are we looking at there?
It really was a discussion, I think, about the sort of the, for lack of a better term, how discourse has degraded, over the past
Beautiful. Yeah.
5-10 years, right? With,
Not beautiful.
you
I
know,
mean,
where
the vision is not beautiful. Yes, let me be clear.
you know, people
I'm
are,
glad that,
yeah.
yes.
people take more strict positions. They're unwilling to listen, and that doesn't end up making for good policy in the end. And so, and it makes it difficult for all of us to work. You know, council members or city administration.
That's fantastic to hear. That's now my number one all of a sudden.
Two other topics. One is social media use, and I know some
that's a
city
good one.
some city attorneys are very clear, but it's the what you post pre-meeting, especially
Mhm.
on keeping the open mind up until the moment the public,
Yeah.
the public comment period closes. And one second, what was it? Oh, hang on. I had one more other thing. Social media. Oh, and IGRs and liaison positions. Mainly, is it a perspective of representing your city? There's a difference between representing your city and the body as a whole from a county standpoint. And I think that would be a debate amongst some council members.
Yeah.
But there is the concept of what your representation is. Are you in who you are representing?
Yeah.
Are you representing the county as a whole, the region as a whole, or your specific city, which I think is an important distinction that some council members don't understand. Sure, absolutely.
That could even vary depending upon the body, right?
Yeah.
Because some bodies are specifically designed to be consultative of a specific group.
Yeah.
And therefore every city has a representative. And so you are kind of just intended to be the representative of your city.
Correct.
And then there are other places where, like let's say the VTA board, well, in that instance, you are there for that entity.
Right.
And you have a fiduciary duty to it in that
Yeah.
role. And that's a different.
But often but even in there, you're also kind of also representing the concerns, concerns of even, which is interesting, concerns of 3 cities
Yes.
or whatever,
Yes.
depending upon where you.
Yes, because we've come up with a Byzantine way of.
Exactly. But I think that
Don't try to change that.
that's one of the topics that I often talk about when I'm on board. So
I think if I can go back to the question,
Sure.
the confusion about what's the difference between what we're doing and what we're doing. I think I am going to be involved in working with Larry and Shali on planning our summer session. So we will make sure, and I know, and I apologize, we have talked about the differences, but I cannot recall how exactly we framed that up, but we will talk about that. There are differences, and we had ideas around that. So, and we'll be working with Kevin Dugan, and we also, it's likely we'll be working with him. So he's also good at keeping those two things different and give different value there. So we'll make sure they're different for sure.
And I see maybe conceivably it's a a deeper dive. I look
Yeah.
at the May-June event as educational but social.
Yeah.
This conceivably is more quick session, 10, 15-minute deep dives
Yeah.
to a certain degree, and then discussion, and then move on. I think there'll be, at least the way I see this setup is, if you want more back and forth discussion, answering questions and all that, that's what October, November is for.
November. Yep.
And then this is a little bit of that, but it's more,
Yeah.
it's like, let's talk about the issue and all that. Although Kevin, when he presents, especially his section, is more getting feedback from the audience, but not questions or,
Yeah.
It's more getting their perspectives and trying to get a consensus.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Scheduling, you brought up the Thursday night. So scheduling is going to be quite a challenge for you,
Yes.
a big challenge.
Yes.
I'm sure Sunny will go through this. In my city, we'll end up scheduling things in spite of knowing where the assignments are. We still run into issues.
Yeah.
So doing that with 15 cities.
And I think what we're trying, first of all, this is, I think, intended to be more than just these 2 sessions. Like we would stand this up and then continue it year over year. So there would be multiple opportunities. Don't hold me to that last one, but that's my understanding of it.
Or maybe every election.
Or maybe every election cycle we were talking about doing it. Yeah, so what we want to do is try to hold multiple sessions so that there are more opportunities for people to attend.
Would you record this?
We hadn't talked about that, but that's not a bad idea.
And there are
Yeah.
pros and cons to that, right?
Yeah.
Because you want people to be
You
comfortable.
want people to be
Like-
comfortable,
Yeah.
you want them to be able to speak frankly, ask
Exactly.
frank questions. So yeah, that's, now that I say that out loud, I probably
Because it's
not,
kind of
but
something,
maybe
yeah.
one or maybe we have one that we record that is not like that. Yeah.
The non-discussion part, because
Yeah.
I'm thinking,
Yes.
I have a schedule issue because I had the same time.
Yeah.
Do we want to record or not? But so maybe some portions can be recorded, which people who are unable to come can watch. That way you are spreading the message to a broader audience. And at the same time, the discussion groups give people enough freedom.
Freedom, yeah. Okay.
Just a thought.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just to build on what I had mentioned the first time. I wasn't just thinking about, individual council members going outside of bounds of what they're allowed to do or trying to direct staff outside of a council meeting on their own. I'm also thinking about council trying to go beyond the bounds of its own power,
Mhm.
right? Where you're intruding into implementation and the domain of the city manager, because that's a whole separate bag of potatoes.
Mhm.
And I think it merits its own admonition.
Got it. Thank you.
If I may,
Mhm.
sometimes those discussions of the implementation or operations are really leading up to the policy change. And so how do you explain that to both city manager
Yep.
and the council?
Yep.
Is equally important. Council members are not to go and implement, but a lot of those tools that need implementation will help change the policy and be more effective for the city, whatever the issue is.
Yeah, I think the way I view I think if I understand correctly what you're saying, Tina, I understand what you're saying, that sometimes I think, for council to make an effective policy decision, they have to have at least a decent understanding of what the operational framework. And it falls on staff to really kind of explain that, how things work, and what the key things to consider are. So we try to, at least in my role, I have a very engaged city council, and they're great, and but they ask a ton of questions, and sometimes, and that's okay. Like I don't mind that. And sometimes they sound very operational, and they'll make my staff nervous. And I always reassure them, look, they're just seeking knowledge here. Like they understand their role. They've demonstrated that. Like we'll handle the questions. We're all good, and I think you need to know that in order to make good policy decisions.
And to be able to give that information to council so council can have a robust
have that,
discussion
yes.
to make the right call on policy.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. No speakers in the room. Any remote speakers to speak on this item? Any final comments? Okay, thank you. Tim. Next up is item number 4, identify potential speakers for 2025. Shall I?
Yeah, so you got a bunch of handouts, and I'm putting on the agendas now. When I list to what we're talking about, it's including but not limited to, because after the agenda was posted, I got another message. So the first one is the Valley Water. So this is a letter that the vice chair of their board of directors, Richard Santos, had sent to all the mayors. If you look on the back, you can see who he sent it to. He reached out to me as well and sent me this and talked to me. And in a nutshell, Director Santos wants to create a JPA focusing on the unhoused. And he thought that perhaps the cities association would be interested. And so I said I would bring it to our executive committee to discuss whether you want him to come before the board or how you want to handle this. So that's do you want me to just go over all
Go
of them?
over
and then-
all three, yeah.
Okay, so that's what the Valley Water one is about. Carl Gardino, I just put that there because I didn't want you all to forget that we had wanted him to come and speak. The Community Planning Collaborative, if you look at this handout that I sent to you, when the REAP funds expire, right? All the different jurisdictions are expected to kick in money. And so they want to be able to talk to our board and tell them that this is what's going to happen. And if you look at the bottom of the page, you'll see how much it's going to cost each city to be a part, to what they're expected to chip in for this. So, and I know that our planning collaborative consultants would like to know by July 1st how many cities are interested so they can start planning. So that's what this is about.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a planning collaborative update like we normally have, but it's specific to what happens next, like after REAP.
Mhm.
And the final one is Jay Donahue from Behavioral Health Services, Public Health. I believe he did speak last year. I know he was supposed to, and then he had Megoline and someone else speak on his behalf. It was about, so we did Suicide Prevention Month. So this is about a workshop or training about suicide prevention. And what he could do is very briefly at one of our board meetings, like just say, this is what the county has, this is how you can access it if anyone's interested. Like he doesn't have to give a whole presentation about it. But so if you look at the top, you know, how emails are in backwards order, this is kind of what the presentation or the workshop would entail.
So is he proposing, sorry, jump to questions.
Sure.
Is he proposing a workshop or is he proposing
Information about the workshop?
information about a workshop that he's
Okay.
already scheduling? This is the question.
It's both.
It's the meeting.
Okay.
to
He's
talk
welcome.
about the
He's
meeting.
open to do anything. So if you want him to do a workshop, he'll do a workshop. If you just want him to let people know that these workshops are available and that
Okay.
they can schedule with him and they'll come and do it, that's there too.
Do you know how long the workshops are? I mean, they may be able to be tailored, but do you talk about the length of the workshop?
Well, he said they're adjustable, usually between 30 minutes and an hour. It sounds like there has to be a series of trainings.
And I'll say
Yeah.
personally, I think this is great. And Suicide Prevention Month is in September.
Mhm.
And so if the president wanted to have it as an agenda item, do a 30-minute workshop, because to Tina's point earlier, it is so hard to schedule these things.
Yeah.
And to find another day to schedule this very important workshop is going to be tricky. But if it's
Mhm.
only 30 minutes, September is Suicide Month, maybe have it on our agenda for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't think we need a meeting to discuss the meeting.
No.
Okay.
Although having him,
Talk to you.
I'm happy to talk to him ahead of time and even conceivably give him, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
10 minutes in April
Oh,
to
okay.
say, here's what's coming up in September. But if other cities want to do something within those cities, why wait till September? If they, give him a platform twice, one to do,
Okay.
assuming, depending on what our agenda looks like in September, but have the training for us in September, but give him the platform of, I'm happy, I do both is my
Okay.
guess.
That's great.
Um,
And I'll set up a call.
And
Talk to him.
then just from the top, as far as Dick Santos, I'd be interested to hear more about the JPA that he's proposing. More importantly, how that would be funded and what he's looking for. That to me, it's a bigger issue. I'm surprised that it's Valley Water that's leading it, but I will leave that to what it is. And then at some point, yeah, we'll schedule Tirana to come in, but
Okay.
just to show what that availability or what can be done in the community. So I think all are valid. I think most, especially from priority standpoint for us, is the suicide prevention. So
Okay.
scheduling, I think those two meetings is important.
And did you want me to set up a meeting with you and
Yes.
Dr. Santos?
So just a Zoom meeting so that, or coffee, just, yeah, just do the introduction and we'll figure out times, unless you want to attend also. Okay.
What about planning collaborative? How do you want to handle that? Because I
And-
think that's very important.
Yeah.
So just leave it.
And no, planning collaborative, yes, definitely. My question on that was going to be, has this already been brought up to the city managers?
I'm sorry.
the planning collaborative cost?
The REAP
I
cost.
The read
don't
cost.
think it has
I
been, because
don't
I would have
believe
been the
so.
one that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to bring it up to us. But it really should be
Belongs
driven by the
From
city
to-
man. So I
Okay.
think it's both places,
Okay,
and I agree. We need to raise our, but if the city manager is not on board and yeah, not that our members can't take it back and say, we need to do this and slowly build consensus, but the planning collaborative should be selling it at the city managers association meeting.
should I,
I agree. I completely agree. I've already brought it up to my city
Okay.
manager. But again, then it goes back to one council member talking about it.
Right.
So that's kind of the operations piece. I completely agree. It should go straight to the city managers.
Yeah.
Tim, do you want me to see if I can ask Pam to put on our April agenda?
Yeah,
Okay,
that'd be
I
great.
think that's the right thing. And then it goes on our April agenda just to educate us.
yeah,
If possible. But it's a short kind of, it's their ask at this point, and kind of it's them patting themselves on the back on what they've accomplished so far, which we've heard about previously. But then here's the upcoming ask,
so it's for us as an information item, I guess.
pretty much.
Okay,
Any other comments about speakers? Member Scazola?
Thank you. I was wondering with the planning collaborative, if I think it would be really beneficial if we saw if they have any real statistics and things to like numbers they can point to, like see how beneficial this was. I'd be really curious to see those numbers, especially when it comes to this final example that they have here: anti-displacement landlord and tenant support. This, according to people that I've spoken to, people have approached me. This is an increasing, I think a lot of us know, this is an increasing problem for our residents about, I just simply can't afford to live. I'm being displaced. I don't want to leave, but I have to. And so I'd be especially like all these things, but I'm especially curious about that in particular and how effective this has been in keeping people in their homes.
I'll just say, I think that this is a marvelous sort of cost saving
Oh, yeah.
opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in particular with how much more technical housing element development has become over time, a lot of things that can be very helpful to you are really only valuable if they're analyzed on a regional basis. Things like, is this ADU something that I can count as moderate income housing, for example? You need a study for that. Why should we all have individual citywide studies that are analyzing this on a countywide basis? That's a nice bonanza if you're in the planning industry.
Yeah.
But I don't know that we need to be subsidizing that for every single city when we can do it on a group basis.
Right. The ADU calculator, I think, has become critical for a lot of cities.
And if you look at some of the other legislation that's turtling its way through Sacramento, it looks like a number of other things are sort of headed in that direction. So to the extent that we can leverage something like this, that seems very helpful.
Absolutely. Other comments?
I agree. Once again, I want to reemphasize that it needs to come from the city managers because they know exactly all that's going on in CDD in each city.
Thank you. No members of the public to speak. Any remote members?
no one.
Nope. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, we'll close that item and move on to our next item.
Thank you.
Future meeting topics is discussion and possible action. So one, I see CERT. So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had talked about that before, and I think that Steve Preminger was also interested in talking about the county's resources for CERT training, so I just put that back on there.
no, I think that's a relatively good short-term one. Although it's getting, and I don't know if it's conceivably it's pushed the city managers, because I don't know how many of our cities have their own city internal CERT training. So I appreciate the counties there, and a lot of our internal cities do county training once a year.
Right.
But it's, poll all the city managers, and because I think it's important to, because we have Mountain View members, at least every class for the last 7 years, we have at least 2 or 3 members
Oh.
that come from other cities.
Oh.
But I think how it works is because I did, yes, when it was the last council meeting, I mentioned the challenge, the wording for
Alright.
the challenge, but we had staff explain it. And I don't know if this is for all cities, but County Fire has a CERT training schedule where they
Mhm.
go to different cities. And the two that will be in Los Altos Hills and Los Altos, we got the dates for those.
Yeah.
So I imagine that if we can't make those 2 dates, we would look at the schedule and say, oh, there's one in Sunnyvale, the
Right.
date may work better.
Right.
So my understanding is County Fire offers these trainings, and there are 2 coming up that are in Los Altos Hills.
Yeah.
So I imagine they go around.
Right.
Okay.
And then, so yeah, for Sunnyvale, we do 3 on our own every year.
Okay.
So I think it's pinging each of the cities, and as you get, some cities will not do it at all and rely on the county, but others will do it on their own. And so it depends on the city. And I think it's important to clarify, before this meeting, when we bring this topic up. I'm happy to have the county come in
Okay.
and speak. That being said, we should also have, and here's the other cities that do it on their own, so that
Okay.
conceivably the county should post that website, because we do it.
Okay.
Why we have other members is mainly because word of mouth of,
Right.
across the border, and cities or residents coming in from nearby that are like, oh, I have a friend in Sunnyvale who went through this program.
Okay. So just to clarify, so I should poll all the city managers. Do you have CERT trainings that your own city puts on?
Yeah.
Or how do you otherwise do CERT trainings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, if you would. Thank you.
Couple of comments.
Yeah.
The county fire does 4 trainings a year typically. And their first, this is what I understand, cities that have direct county fire as the fire service provider, are the first ones that they keep those slots open for.
Hmm.
The one I just did, they had a few people who were not county fire, including some San Jose folks, and they said, we just prefer first filling the slots, which there's always opening.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned that there are some differences in CERT trainings. For example, I believe San Jose's CERT training, I think I heard, is at a very different level, not so many hours. I could be completely wrong, but there are variations. And this is one thing, again, city managers, as you said, Larry, you would be able to gather that data. And county fire does go to different locations.
Right. Was yours in Saratoga?
No, this was in their main headquarters. This was the first in person after COVID.
Ah.
The
It's
first
amazing.
in person academy, and
Wow.
in their new headquarters in Campbell off Dell. The next one I think is Las Gatas, and then the next 2 are Los Altos Hills.
Those are the ones we were told about, the 2 Los Altos.
Right. So you can go and check that online.
I mean, we could go anywhere. We could
Right.
drive
You
to
can go
any.
So,
Right.
so
But it depends on where you're working, it's like
Completely.
there's always opportunity.
completely different, not CERT. I, as the one of the members on the county's EOAC, I met some of those folks offline, and I was asking them for ideas of what would they be interested, as I was understanding their operations and everything, and what is my role. And I was having a very broad conversation, and one of the suggestions made to me was that they have had trainings in the past. I didn't have the time to go through the details, but I can follow up, to have a training for the role of the elected officials in an emergency.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
And they said that is relevant for every single council member in every single city. They could handle it from there. They could have people coming from the county, you see, or they could look for some consultants if that is more.
Are they offering?
Kind of did.
Because I've gone to like mayor's conferences and heard from, there's always a session on preparedness.
Mhm.
Because there's always a mayor that's just recently went through a major flood, hurricane, or whatever,
Mhm.
talking about being disconnected from the world in some
Mhm.
cases, and what it took to kind of respond.
Mhm.
If they're off, so I'd be.
What would you want me to follow up? I can do that.
Best practices from, it's like, and and it goes back to the partnership with the city manager. You're the face of the community usually.
Mhm.
But you're not calling meetings to on a daily basis to say, what are we going to do to respond? It's the city being prepared at the end of the day. So from an elected standpoint, you don't have a lot of control. You're the face of the community. You're conceivably reaching out to the community. You're pulling them together. You're pointing them to here's where resources are. But you're sitting in the room with the city manager, Red Cross, all this, and making very quick decisions very quickly.
And in some cities, even those decisions are not being made at the smaller city level. They're being made more at the county level.
Right.
And that's kind of what, again, this was one of the things that I had a 90-minute meeting on bunch of emergency and disaster preparedness and resources follow through. It was a broad conversation.
Okay.
So I am happy to follow up and see
Okay.
what are they willing to
Yeah.
offer.
So yeah, I'd be interested because
Okay.
I've heard, I've actually taken multiple notes
Mhm.
if something bad happened, and trying to prepare,
Mhm.
what you do with the press, what you're doing with
Mhm.
resources. Lots of our cities have arcs ready to roll out, water and food and cots and tents, and it's true. There's a countywide, and that's part of that countywide plan.
Mhm.
But then it's what's expected of the electeds would be an interesting thing.
So two follow-up
Yeah.
questions. So one, because this is county EOC, I want to make sure we're talking about the same thing. Because EOC, when there's an emergency, they activate all the public employees, all the county employees as disaster workers, right? And so if that's the role they're talking about, I know they do training at the county talking about what you would do in the event of an emergency as a county employee, because you become a disaster worker.
Yeah.
So we're all public officials, and
Yeah.
even at the city level. So that's what they may be talking
Okay.
about. Tina will double check. That's different from the role of council members, where we're doing press conferences and helping work with staff. It's two different roles.
Yeah.
I'd be curious what role they're referring to.
Yeah.
I believe it was very specifically for elected officials.
Right, public official, right.
Yeah, from different cities, especially when anybody's talking to me, they know I'm I represent a very small city.
Right.
I'm an elected official there. And we happen to have both county fire and county sheriff.
Right.
And when something is happening across the Bay Area, then the county EOC the orders are coming from the sheriff and so on and so forth. That structure.
Right.
To bring that awareness to all council members in different cities with slightly different setups. Like I mentioned earlier, directly elected mayor, smaller city, larger city.
So that's even a different topic, explaining how their structure works, right?
Yeah, so it could be.
It's so many,
Yes.
right? But when you
Exactly.
talk about the role, I heard what Larry described, that to me, that's a different role than when we get activated as disaster workers.
This is not about disaster workers.
Okay.
No. This
Okay,
is
so
not.
it is the
It's-
more figurehead type.
Right.
correct?
It's figuring out because you're put in the spotlight,
Right.
and this is what I've heard from mayors. It's like
Right.
all of a sudden you're put in the spotlight, and whether or not it's a major disaster or even a fire at one of our apartment buildings that we had a few years ago, that, okay, you have 100 families displaced. Now what are you doing? And
Right.
it's this different disaster, but there is that sort
Right.
of what are your plans from a community response?
One of the smaller incidents that our former West Valley cities police chief had shared with me one time was there was a supposed shooting in a school, not in Saratoga, but in one of the three cities. And the communications went out from the school principals. It was actually not a shooting. And all that communication was dispersed to the parents. And of course, that created challenges. This came about because when I was asked to sign some documents as mayor, I said, what? I know nothing about this. Has somebody gone through this? And so I went to him and he said, thank you for doing this. Because often mayors just sign this, just like that. And he found some things that he corrected. Then he shared with me what they have tried to. So to me, that's a tiny little thing where nothing had actually happened.
Right.
And if something big has happened, really, for all of us to have that rather than just, oh, somebody will tell you then, which is what happens in small cities. Yeah, when something happens, we will convey it to you. That is not how CZU fire in 2020, when it came up Santa Cruz Mountains. Some Saratoga residents got an incorrect message. And so, from my perspective, with what my experience is, listening in on what has happened, if all of us can have that kind of training in a contained manner, it is educating us and telling us exactly what we are supposed to do, which is not much. Listen to this. X person is going to reach out to you, and then all you're doing is conveying that message.
Got it.
And getting the residents to follow. Because people will not sign up right now for alert SCC or Genesis Product. However many times we ask them, which is fine. But at that time, not to give wrong messaging.
I get it now. Yeah.
That's how I heard it.
Right.
But I'm sure there's more to it than that. And talking of that, just one side thing, which I was reading this afternoon, I think Bloomberg News, or was it somewhere else? Two separate things, sorry. I was reading two separate newsletters.
Can we come back?
No, it is about the messaging in disaster. That we need to have better messaging and simpler messaging for the residents. And that's all I want to say.
And I think, and conceivably, pulling in county for alert SCC and talking about that again, I think is useful. Just in general, we had a discussion in previous last year, I think, they at least came up. Councilmember Fruin.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with Tina that, there's value in having some idea what one's role should be in these situations, so that you're not helping incorrect information to metastasize. At the same time, for those of us who are emergency workers in these situations, there is a lot of stuff that you have to go through that's mandated by statute that you have to learn.
Yeah.
And it may actually be valuable for every elected since you're not required to examine any of this, look through it, because it's all publicly available. There's quite a lot that's there, and it will actually be very helpful in further understanding what the EOC does.
Yeah. Any other comments?
Just going into the minutia, talking about potential cert challenge. So I was just thinking ahead about a few things for the board to discuss, but just to make it fun, like there probably should be, very specific, okay, it's going to be this amount of time. You pick a time, obviously, it's going to be from this date to this date. This is the timeline, certain rules, whatever, but recognition, so, hopefully everyone participates and we can recognize all cities, but I'm thinking there should be something like 100%, like, oh, you get an extra special award, that you can hang on somewhere in City Hall, that has all the council members' names on it.
This is becoming a theme for you.
That's
That's
right.
I mean, I love it. I'm sorry. But I'm just saying, I'm obviously very excited about this. But yeah, that's it. Just to get into the minutia, that's it.
And then as far as looking at our priorities for the year, one of the things we haven't gotten to is older adults. We didn't bring in SourceWise last year.
We did.
We did.
Yeah. He spoke at the same time that Taylor spoke.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say it was Matthew Hudes. He did his representative update.
So of our priorities, disaster preparedness, we've been hitting. Council governance, definitely we will hit. Older adults, homelessness and housing, which we planning collaborative always covers kind of that to some degree, and conceivably talking about the JPA. Mental health, definitely we were talking about. Child care is one topic we haven't really covered, and then federal response, which we now are kind of making standard for the rest of the year at least. So I think that's fine. Any other comments? If you have ideas about topics or speakers, definitely bring them to me or Shali. And sorry, I thought we were cloudy enough for the rest of the afternoon. And I requested the blinds to actually be raised when they were like we've been having some questions about they don't go up until the sun's pretty much down. So I'm like, oh, it's cloudy. And now of course the sun's good. Anyway, this is all my fault.
I'm not complaining.
I know. I'm
Although I'm sure Andrew can barely see it.
You can barely see Andrew.
Anyway, any members of the public remote?
No one remote.
In person. With that, we'll move on to our next item. Review of the April 10th, 2025 meeting agenda and topics. First is Black.
So I think, Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have the sort of generic agenda that's currently there with the usual placeholders. I'm not really anticipating having a speaker at present because there's a whole host of bills that now have contents. So we can actually do something with it. I don't have as much feedback from member cities as I would like. Thank you, Tina, for actually supplying this.
You're welcome.
And Shally for doing some active outreach to others to get some things. I kind of want to address things more like by topic than by specific bill number. I'll backfill bill number when we get to closer to time. But I do want some opportunity between now and then to sort of look at are these bills that are actually worth weighing in on. So for example, Tina selected a whole suite of wildfire and insurance related bills that I think are very valuable for everyone to be looking at. But there's a number in there that are sponsored solely by one Republican author, and typically those don't tend to advance. So, there may be some that I just give a pass to, but maybe add to a watch list. There's a suite of bills addressing the regional housing needs allocation for the 7th cycle and various other housing element related bills that I think fall into another bucket that I would like to at least begin a conversation about. And then there's a set of bills that are being introduced by various of the legislators who represent our area that I think are probably worth having their own discussion on. And one of the things I wanted to put to all of you was, would it be a valuable thing in your estimation to invite either the member or one of their representatives to present on that specific bill as part of the discussion? Because I think that could be something useful for making a better informed decision and maybe having a little bit of a conversation so that there's useful organic information that's taken back.
We did that 2 years ago, actually, with the Valley Water was putting another bill forward with Clara.
Mm-hmm.
They'd come into it.
And I'll just add to that. We normally do that, Jer, especially if it's a local representative. But we take it a step further if we're asking the committee to vote on the bill to take a position. If it's possible to find someone opposing on the other side before you vote, that's always good.
So to treat it kind of like one of the legislative policy committees in Sacramento.
Yeah, and that's what we do. We try to find someone who argues the other side before we vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how would you feel about doing the same thing for, say, some other piece of legislation that is not necessarily one of our own legislators?
Oh, it's consistent. It was whatever bills we were asking the committee to vote on, to the extent we could find views on both sides. We tried to, or we do research and pull documents and put in the packet. Okay. Especially on housing, you'll get white paper on both sides.
Yes. The only question is, are you asking, how are you narrowing down the 15 bills that they've put out there before,
so it's
before
not
the night?
Yeah, so it's not all of them. Part of it is I kind of, we've had presentations now from Assemblymember Aarons, Senators Cortese and Becker, and each one of them mentioned very specific bills that they thought would be relevant to us.
Right.
So I can either solicit them directly and say, hey, is there a bill you'd like us to weigh in on? Do you want to pitch it to us specifically? Or I can select one and say, this seems to be relevant to all of our cities, and ask them if they would like us to consider it. Either of those two directions seems totally appropriate to me. Some of them, I don't want to say that they feel like no-brainers, but they feel like things that I think people would be interested in. like Senator Cortese's SB 753. This is on abandoned shopping carts, right? This is a problem for probably all of our cities except for maybe Montessori. So, and that's only because, you know, they don't have any commercial.
Right, right.
So,
And to follow up on my points, and those are obviously two different things. Josh Becker in the past has done exactly the former, where he'll come with something he's thinking about and he wants our input and feedback and thoughts on it. That you just have the representative, socializing it and going back and forth. Versus if you're asking the committee to take a position on one of the bills, that's when you bring it.
I just wanted to make sure that everyone was okay with that before I went in that direction.
Member Flight, Member Walia.
Thank you. So, Jared, thank you. And the email I sent you was whatever I could find, knowing that you're working on this very closely. I left it to you just because here are some things that interest me. You choose the bills, which would be meaningful for all 15. I like, and that's what I tried to do last year, taking advice from Nisa. I was also having a lot of bills to go through. So at times, for time management, some senator may have presented at a different meeting, and then we discussed when the bill was ready. So I would say use your best judgment, and I'd respect that.
Okay.
One of the additional pieces of information I want to add here is, for example, and I'm using it as an example and yet very specifically, the bill from Senator Becker on the builder's remedy, I forget the number right now, where when the city has adopted versus when HCD has certified. So I brought it to his housing staff the other day. That will be helpful for most cities. Unfortunately, for the city of Saratoga, it won't be as effective because, put it very simply, we submitted our first draft in July 22, certified July 24, 24 months literally, and not a single opportunity site has changed. So we only adopted 3 months prior because by the time Builder's Remedy kicked in, we submitted way ahead of time, early enough, but we were still going through the EIR and the general plan and the zoning amendments when the Builder's Remedy loophole started getting used. We could not quickly jump into adopt. So that, for example, would be a perfect amendment when that bill comes up. I'm going to suggest that.
Okay.
That if there has been no change in the final certification from the original housing opportunity sites. So things like that for other bills that would be other city specific. Just sharing. Thanks.
Any other comments?
I'll just say,
No, go for it.
No,
Go for
Eric.
it. Sorry. Oh, I was just curious if anyone here has, I've gotten some feedback from residents on one of Senator Becker's bill, co-authored, I believe. But it's kind of it seems to be a free speech, potentially like one of those dangerous free speech First Amendment rights kind of. I'm getting a lot of pushback from.
If you just, what's it about?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can't remember the exact number. Sure. Okay.
I don't
Essentially, it puts conditions, very specific conditions, on teachers when they're teaching ethnic studies programs, and when it comes to the Palestine Israeli conflict and the history and so I've got a lot of pushback.
You can decide what bills you want to put on your agenda.
But that's one I've been hearing a lot.
He has a lot of discretion on the bills.
But that's the one I've been getting an earful on that one. So I just wanted to see if anyone else has had that experience. And okay, curious. Okay.
I guess so. I think that the bill that you were talking about, Tina, is SB 457.
He's talking about it. That's why I used that as an example. He's bringing it up in most places.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll also just consider that.
No,
I leave it to you.
Yeah, there's some material in here that looks like it is geared toward that issue. Since it seems to undo AB 1886, I'm not sure that this is a bill that's likely to make it very far.
That's why I said you are so close to this that I would trust your judgment in whatever you choose.
Yeah.
My email was very broad. I just suggested here some topics. Here's what I'm picking up
Sure.
in different places.
It may also be that in the course of it, what we can come up with is a means for suggesting, here are some things we think you should consider for these bills, as opposed to necessarily taking specific positions. That way we can be a little bit more strategic about it, especially at this early stage of the game.
Great idea. Thank you.
Yes.
I did have one other that seemed really interesting to me. Assemblymember Lee put up that was about corporations buying single family homes and not being allowed to rent them out. And so I'm super curious about this. And this is something I actually brought up with my own city council because it has become a threat to a lot of our communities where rents are just skyrocketing and it's due to just corporate greed, you know? So I think I can see this as an attempt to try and prevent that from happening in our community. So I'm super interested in that bill.
Okay.
And a good example, I mean, Stanford was doing that in the North County cities. Not corporate greed necessarily, but they were buying up a lot of the
Corporate
housing for their housing. And so then, of course, our residents and other residents
Sure.
in North County, and this is something Similian supported the local cities on, but it's similar in the sense that they buy up the housing and then there's no housing left for our staff or local residents.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have the bill number? I'm sorry.
I do somewhere. Let me.
And the only other thing I would add, President Klein, is so today at the Cal Cities meeting, they're publishing, I think this is the last week to do spot bills. They will be publishing their list next week. They mentioned Senator Wiener's bill. And it's funny because the reaction in the room was basically 50-50. Senator Wiener's bill that's advocating for housing, like streamlining the process to build housing next to transit areas. Exactly. Yep. And so Cal Cities announced it, saying they're going to oppose it. And the room was split on whether or not they supported Cal Cities' position or if they didn't. So that's going to be a no surprise. Wiener's bills are always controversial, but that one is going to be controversial.
AB3.
I don't know the number, but they mentioned it today.
The one that Elliot is referring to, it looks like is AB 1240.
40.
That's the 2025 version, right? Because there was something similar in 24.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And since he
Thanks for
hasn't yet presented, and he committed to me that he would come and talk to us at some point, maybe that's what we could have.
Cool.
I'll add AB 306 about
Reach codes.
Reach
I've
codes.
got that on my list already.
Okay, good.
Excellent.
It's
Right on.
basically stopping reach codes for 6 years coming from Rebus. To speed up housing production. Yeah, basically. So a 6-year housing, 6-year moratorium on reach codes. And I'll give you a few more offline.
Sure.
And then and conceivably transportation.
Oh, yes.
And,
Right. 2200 or so, I believe.
transportation.
Yeah, there's one of the small classes of bills that is there that I'm sure will get a lot of attention is that there are two versions of a statewide bond for affordable housing.
Yeah.
One out of the Assembly, one out of the Senate.
Yeah.
That are probably something we should weigh in on. There is also a regional transportation bond, SB 63.
Yeah.
That I'm sure we will want to also talk about.
Okay. Any other comments on LAC agenda? Let's move to the board meeting agenda. So we talked about City Managers Association Symposium. Sorry, wrong one. Okay, it's the right point. Budget. How are we stand on the budget?
So I've received no comments
Ah,
on the budget.
okay.
So I don't know if I should go to there and ask for my people to send me.
No.
Okay.
Don't do it.
It's gonna be this look like.
I'm just kidding. I'm teasing.
Yeah, so I think, but I will get some better numbers to plug in there from Tim,
Yeah.
so that'll be the only changes to that.
Okay. Good. And if you can get that draft out, when can you be good to get the draft out to at least Elliot and myself
Oh, of the budget?
of the budget, just to see what the final, looks like, and I want to take a final pass, or to the let's say to the executive board to have a final pass through.
Okay.
Because there were some questions at the last meeting, and I just want to make sure all that's updated and we can go through it. Just
Yeah.
give you another round and see.
What do
Okay.
I owe you, Shelley?
Just something in writing how much the auditing slash bookkeeping.
Oh, right. I need
And,
to
and,
send you
and the
it.
room,
Yeah,
and the room.
I
rental.
just need you to send you it in writing. Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
Sorry.
It was that
And the room rental.
and the room rental.
Yeah.
Okay.
No change in numbers, just documenting it.
Exactly.
Yes, thank you.
Exactly. I
Sorry.
want to be able to like support the numbers that I present.
And
Go ahead.
budget related, when it comes to the website, I can't remember the number offhand. Do you remember the number?
7,500.
Okay, and I know it's still fairly early, but has there been any movement on that in any way about the?
Oh, I was gonna,
Just leave it the way it is for now from a
Okay.
budgetary standpoint. We're going to be meeting next Friday
Okay,
to
perfect.
talk about website update.
Great, great.
Okay.
Glad to hear it.
As far as the agenda, budget, yes, professional services. So the agreement is just basically the same as
yeah,
that,
exactly.
but we, from a process standpoint,
You have to approve it
we
every
do
year.
it. We review it and then we approve it a month later. Is that right? Or is this the approval?
I think this is the approval.
Okay, just double checking.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, should I have presented it in March?
I don't remember.
Okay, sorry.
Sometimes I don't remember it's like,
Okay.
do we, it's just like the budget. Do we do a first viewing and then we do a
okay.
secondary, or is it just
Okay.
approval? Okay.
I think I thought that I didn't have to put it in March because the number that I put in the budget is the number that would be in the contract anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as we approve this and swap the order of these.
Oh, sorry. So you want me to?
Yes, because if we wanted to make changes
Oh,
to your
gotcha.
agreement, then it should come before we approve the budget, or we'd
Okay,
have to retake the budget under consideration.
gotcha.
And then regional representatives, I can't remember what we haven't done. So let's put a placeholder for one of those
Okay.
and then we'll talk offline to figure out what we can do.
And you want me to add Jay Donahue for like 10 minutes
Yes,
to talk about? Okay.
absolutely. And maybe another speaker depending upon, but I think just between the budget always, not always, but now that we're trying to do the final approval as well as the agreement, conceivably there's a bigger issue. And I think the rest of this is fine.
Okay.
Any other comments about the agenda? Yes.
It seems like a short meeting. I'll fill in the time. Did you?
Sure.
Yeah, while she's
Eating.
yeah, finishing her potato chip. Is there any other presenter, or do you think this is sufficient? I'm not asking for a long meeting. I'm just saying
No.
limited number of meetings.
Absolutely. So the question, and we'll talk about, at least that presenter and maybe another. So conceivably and conceivably even and this is April, the suicide, the front end of the suicide workshop for September.
Right.
And so I'll let you talk to that offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other two, so thanks, Tina, for filling in. I thought Margaret wanted to talk with us.
So I've not heard from her office, but I
Someone
can reach
mentioned it
out.
was Ron. I remember at a meeting.
Yes.
I had spoken with Mariko at one point, and Margaret had expressed some interest in.
So I would check with Margaret. I think
Oh, okay.
I heard, maybe it was from you,
I'm-
that she wanted to come and talk to us.
I'm meeting with her on the 1st. I'll bring it up.
Perfect.
Cool.
And then did we land on a date for our April executive committee meeting?
So I was gonna bring that up in my.
We don't
meeting,
need to
but-
agendize it for approval. It's not a change to this, because we have to approve our meeting dates. If we don't, I'm fine.
We
For-
can call a special meeting at any time.
There's gonna be a
Call it a
special
special
meeting.
meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can just address it during Shelley's update.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrew.
Sure.
And then one topic that isn't a priority topic, but we had talked about it last year. And so if we're looking for topics,
Yeah.
we talked about e-bikes.
Oh.
Remember?
Oh, e-bikes.
Thank you.
For some reason, when we did the priorities, climate didn't rise
Yeah.
to the top this year, which is surprising. So I don't know how the committee feels about putting a non-priority. We've done it at times, as Shali knows,
Yeah.
where we're like, it's not a priority topic, but we think the board wants to talk about
It's
this.
I don't think we only need to cover priority topics. It's educational for the board, and so I think that's fine.
I think that's a topic that I would love for us to put on
Okay.
the agenda at some
Okay.
point.
Is
So-
there someone I should reach out to or a department I should reach out to get more information?
Is it, I can't remember when we talked about it last
Someone
year.
on your council I know is interested in it.
Yeah. Richard Mellinger.
Richard.
I know.
Um,
But is
my
it,
city is.
is it from legislation? Is it from getting e-bikes,
No, it's two
legislation?
things. It's legislation because right now in Sacramento, they are considering standardizing legislation related to updating because it's not current about what we're really seeing on our streets. But then also there is a push statewide to have cities adopt ordinances, e-bike ordinances. And it would make sense for our region to have similar e-bike ordinances because our kids, bike all around the different areas. They cross city borders.
Yeah.
A matter of fact, there's a city that recently banned kids under 16 from riding e-bikes. So I know it's a relevant topic.
Okay.
So it's from legislation and also local ordinance. I think it'd be good for us to share and benchmark it.
Okay. Any other comments about the agenda? Okay, any remote speakers?
No.
No speakers in the room?
Nope.
Okay. We'll move on to our next item, Santa Clara County City Managers Association update.
I don't have an update today. I gave an update at the main meeting and we haven't met again since. So
Okay.
I will provide an update next time.
Thank you. An executive director update?
Yeah. So I heard from Kevin Duggan that May does not look good for him. So probably we'll do our summer event in June. So just so this committee to know that in case when we're planning, April and May are our last two meetings of this quarter,
First half.
of this first half of the year. So in case you want to put something on the agenda, if it doesn't make it in May, it's going to have to wait till August. The other things I just wanted to very quickly bring up, our executive committee meeting that we're trying to reschedule.
Mhm.
3 of you can make it April 15th at 4:30. One person can only do May 1st, and one person I have not heard from, despite pinging. So I don't know. I would really like to finalize it so that I can reserve a room here as soon as possible and release our April 24th date. So that's one thing. And then the website committee, as Mayor Klein said, we're meeting April 4th at 4 p.m. What I would like to do is once our committee gets on the same page about what we want, is then have a meeting with the planning collaborative consultant before our board meeting so that we have something to present. So if that's the case, then I don't know if we can add that to the agenda, the board agenda, a website update. If not, we can do it in May. So just something to think about. Maybe that's too ambitious, huh?
One question exactly to that point. It's a 30-minute Zoom meeting next Friday. It works for us.
Yeah.
But if I had not thought about then meeting with the planning collaborative and bringing it for April 10th meeting. If that's your goal, if you want, we could consider it's a 30-minute Zoom meeting earlier in the week, next week. Or it doesn't matter at this.
I don't
So
think
she
it
may not
matters.
be able to give us a quote. But I want to be able to say to the board that we have met and we've met with the consultant and we're in the process of getting quotes.
Yeah.
Once we get an idea from her, then Morley can give us a quote based on what she's giving us a
Yeah.
quote on.
Would you then want to, again, this is operations, but do you want to then schedule something, add it to the agenda for the 10th, and meanwhile schedule with the planning collaborative a tentative time between actually 4th is end of the day, Friday.
Yeah.
5th, 6th, so rather 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere there. Just if you want to put it in the April board meeting to get it started. Just
She can just say that we're meeting
okay.
from
From
our
my
president,
pers-
either the president or the executive can say we're meeting on this, and it doesn't have to be covered as
Okay.
an item within the meeting.
It's real quick, Shally.
Yeah.
So I moved something. So May 1st and then April 15th, I could make if I need to.
Oh, good.
I moved something recently since last we talked.
Okay.
So that's still possible.
And if 3 of you could be here in person, then you could be remote.
Okay,
And-
April 15th.
April 15th
But
and 4:30.
I did move something, so I
Thank
can
you.
be here. 4:30, right? Yeah.
4:30.
How many people are not available on Thursday, April 24th, like our original date? How many people are not available?
For me, it has to be 5 o'clock because they schedule an Arbor Day thing. And
Okay.
5 is literally the earliest. I may still be 5 minutes late and cut something
But you
there.
could do a 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I decided not to do Sacramento.
Okay, so I know I am not available on the 24th, but if everybody else is, since that's our default meeting date,
Would you be able to join by Zoom?
No. but it's okay.
Are you going to Sacramento?
No, I can definitely do the 24th. The 15th is personally terrible for me because that's a council meeting day.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh,
And we have
24th.
we have been having lots of closed
5
sessions
or
or
later.
Okay, 5
special
o'clock.
meetings that precede.
I'm
the
not
regular
planning to go to
meeting.
Sacramento
So-
unless
Maybe not the 15th.
the speaking engagement that you talked at, was that Sacramento? Did he get back to you on
No,
that?
I think we're talking about the fall Cal
Okay.
Cities conference.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
I know it was
this is
close,
city
but
leaders.
that's why
Let me
my
double
first
check.
question is, okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking of going, but meanwhile, it's been 2 weeks since we talked. I found my schedule is getting very
Oh, yeah.
heavy.
It's always that way.
So I decided I'm not going to do that. So 24th I can do. My only conflict is the Arbor Day, 3:30
So-
to 4:30.
So 5
So
o'clock. Like,
Even
plan
if I
for
leave
5 o'clock, and if you're late, we start when you get here.
Okay.
will that
Thank you.
will that still work for you? April
24th
24th?
at 5, sure.
That works
I
better
Twenty-fourth
could
at
do
5
that.
still work
Yeah,
for you?
absolutely. That's
Okay.
actually better.
And
Do you want to
It's the
schedule?
Cal Cities annual conference that they're asking you to speak at.
which there's two. That's
Yeah, so
that's the
the
problem.
April-
Is it April? Is it April 2 weeks from now? Basically, 3 weeks from now.
Or the
Which is called the
Or in
City
the fall,
Leaders
yeah.
Summit.
This is always the question.
Right. So the April one is called the City Leaders Summit, which used to be called Ledge Day. And then the conference is in September, October.
Oh. He doesn't give me a date.
Well, what did he call
He
it?
just said it for Cal Cities 2025.
I would
No, it's the
I would
conference.
interpret that to mean the
It's the
conference.
conference.
It's the conference, I think.
conference.
Does it say
Okay.
annual conference?
It's
Or
fine.
any-
Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out.
No.
For now, let's
Just
leave it in the
2025.
24th and we're back to where we
24th at
started.
5 p.m.
Yeah. Okay.
That's very good.
Sounds
Okay.
like a
I
perfect
just sent him a
Thanks,
message
everybody.
saying, you're killing me, Peter.
Any other comments?
So I hate to delay people.
Yeah.
You want to just say 5:15 since you're delaying it?
Sure. Yeah.
That way,
5:15? Sure.
because then I know it takes me at least 30 minutes from there.
Okay.
I would have to leave work early anyway, so I'll be delighted. to have
5:15. Okay.
But I'm free after that.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, you're
5:15.
5:30.
It's a special meeting.
Yeah,
Whatever we
5:30.
do, it's a special
No,
meeting.
5:30. I'm fine up to
Midnight
that
meeting.
in the evening, whatever
Okay.
time.
Okay.
So 5:15?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Oh, the last thing I wanted to say as part of the ED update is that Andrew, Janney, and I cleaned out the storage.
Oh.
I have to say, well, Andrew is amazing. Because I realized that I'm a hoarder. He just throws everything away. He's like, you don't need this. You don't need this. And I'm like, wait, can I go look at No, you don't need it now. So it's
Yeah.
all empty. And
Nice.
so we're not paying for it anymore.
Great.
Thank you, Andrew, very much.
Any report on
I'm very much an anti-hoarder. So thank you
Yes,
for
Yeah,
the,
I
thank you for the
I
patience.
think.
And actually,
we should get a report on what you found, what was purged. Like,
right.
we should.
And actually whether or not that, so this is something I brought up in an email thread. What's our retention policy with the JPA?
Mm.
And whether or not we need to touch bylaws. And then I agree with Nisa that we should at least report
On what we
back.
found.
that because that immediately affects the budget. So there's immediate budget item that will come up even earlier in the meeting. in the
Yeah,
executive.
shoot, that's a
Right.
safety.
Yeah, exactly.
So my apologies. I need to drop off for a 6:30 meeting, but now that we've gone through the storage unit and frankly gotten rid of almost all of it, I think we're in a place now where we can do a quick, efficient record retention policy for the city association. So I'll work with Jane on that.
I
As
appreciate
turn
that.
as ever.
They really are.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hands on.
Thank you.
They really are.
Sorry for going late. We should have been done 20 minutes ago. It's all my fault. All my
It's
fault. Okay, any
Thanks,
other
Andrew.
comments?
No one online.
With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 6:27 PM.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew.
Sorry, everyone.
Very sorry.
No,
worries.
I try to get it done in